Okay. Perikuf Mem Vav, chapter 146 in Hemshech Ayin Beis, volume 1, page 283. So we're in the middle of discussing he wants to really discuss the difference between Atzilus and the other worlds and Biyah. Because he's explaining in a deeper way the difference between the Ovis and Matan Torah. So to explain that, he went into this whole discussion of Atzilus and Biyah. It's part of a Nekuda sphere and Partzuf. So every sphere has a Nekuda, a point, a type of nucleus, then a full-blown entity, and then a Partzuf of the four worlds that he described. In each sphere there's Atzilus, Biyah, Tzirasiyah. Where we're in the middle of now is that in Medaber itself, so which is Seichel, there are four levels. So we learned so far two of them. The Daimim Shebeseichel and the Tzemeach Shebeseichel. As we said, they're both more closer to each other because they're both Daimim, with Tzemeach having a more revealed element that makes it grow. So what is it in Seichel? So Daimim we defined as being silence, but I would say Daimim is inanimate, mineral. But when we say Daimim Tzemeach HaMedaber, in the narrow sense, we're talking about the four kingdoms: the mineral kingdom, the vegetable kingdom, the animal kingdom, and the human kingdom, which is often discussed. But in a broader sense, Daimim Tzemeach HaMedaber are really the inanimate, like the lowest rung, with the least revealed energy, life force. Tzemeach is a little more life force; it grows at least, but it's still fundamentally a Daimim, as he said, inanimate. Now, you can't call it an animal, you can't call it alive. In the sense, like a Chai is life, a Chai is life. That's why it's called a Chaya. It's life. That's what you see. It's constant movement. It's alive in every possible sense of the word. Nefesh. There's a Nefesh Chaya in it. And Medaber is unique in the Seichel of the Dab, the ability to transcend his own nature, the ability to contemplate, go beyond just the intelligence around survival. So then in that sense, Medaber, the Daimim Tzemeach and Medaber take on four broader meanings than just the four kingdoms. So in Seichel, there's also the four, you could say it's almost like four archetypal elements. So element number one is Daimim. And we discussed at length what is the example for Daimim in Seichel. It's Seichel Amaisa. The intelligence required to actually craft something, to draw something. We're not talking about to conceive how to draw, what you're going to draw, but the actual wisdom when you train your fingers to draw something, there's an intelligence in that talent. That intelligence, though it's very intelligent, as you said, it's Seichel, but it's not intelligence in its purest form, because intelligence in its purest form, as we said, is abstract. It's abstract thinking. The loftier something else, the less tangible it is. So as soon as you're dealing with something more tangible, as he said, the rule was, the more tangible, the more the seichel within it is tangible as well. So therefore, you could say the seichel is already manifest in garments all the way down. This is called Daimim Shebeseichel. What does he call it? He called it, we said, Haskolos HaChaimer. That was one expression. Skola Maisis, Seichel Maisis. There were different terms that he used. Then we went L'mayla Mizehu Omnes Gufa Haskolos Hadavar. And higher than this, in the work itself, in this craft itself or skill itself, is the intelligence in it, which means the Amtsar Atzma, how to do it. Not the actual intelligence invested in what you're doing, in doing it, but the idea of what you're going to do. So now you require something that's more conceptual. And he said there could be even someone who knows how to conceive of something and doesn't even know how to actually implement it, doesn't have the skill. And we'll talk about like a Nagini, you say the kishin of song, someone knows how to sing. A chush, someone who has a sense of song, doesn't mean necessarily that they're kelim. That's maybe not the right example here, but the point is that there's something that there's a level here. This is the tzemeach shebeseichel. So tzemeach is also a daimim be'etzem uhusei. It's also fundamentally daimim, as we said. It's also inanimate, but it has in it something that's revealed. Chayis hu bizgalus b'miktzas. A force of energy, a force of life that's somewhat revealed. Same thing, seichel of tzemeach. So he says also, it's also askola, it's about a craft. It's still about something tangible. But it's not the intelligence that's invested in actually the using your fingers a certain way or drawing a certain way, but it's the seichel behind it. So seichel fundamentally on its own, if you were talking about the pure archetype of seichel is a ruchni. It's an ethereal element. It's an ethereal experience that does not have tangible elements to it. But when the seichel manifests and intelligence manifests in something tangible, the seichel assumes a more tangible form. So in daimim it's completely assuming it because it's literally in the intelligence in the act. And then tzemeach shebeseichel is already the idea behind it, to conceive. And he said, this is the last thing we learned, this is also called in Yonim Tivim, ha-chochmas ha-teva. We speak about chochmas ha-teva, the wisdom of nature, which is really science. You could say things like botany, or biology, or as he said, astronomy. This all goes into the world of chochmas ha-teva. It's an understanding of things that already exist. Like we've spoken many times, science is coming to observe, dissect, analyze, probe that which exists. It's not coming to teach us that which doesn't exist. It's not the realm of science to figure out what doesn't exist. It's just not meant to even imagine that. That's not what that called science. Science is in the realm of observing and understanding the rules of what makes things work the way they work. So you're dealing right away with a gashmi, not with a ruchni. You're dealing with a gashmi. So chachmas hateva, but it's not the technical thing. In other words, someone trains you how to plant a seed. So when you plant the seed, there's a seichel in it, but that's not. What about the science behind planting seeds? The science behind our agriculture? That would be considered already tzemeach shebeseichel. So the act would be, okay, so they teach you, for example, you want hot water for tea or coffee, put hot water in a kettle, light a fire under it, and after a while there's a seichel to it. What's the seichel? The seichel in that also. Someone that doesn't have any intelligence wouldn't do that. Wouldn't. But that's really, it's almost habitual. It's almost a seichel that's minimal intelligence necessary. All I have to do is show you a few times to do it, and you know how to do it. But the seichel behind why it happens, understand why a kettle, why do you need a kettle, why the heat, the whole scientific process behind it. That's also seichel shebe daimim, but it's now you're ready to tzemeach shebe seichel. Because you're dealing with intelligence within it, which is already more ethereal. You're not talking about purely the pure act of doing it. That would be a distinction that I would give. That's Rambam. That's Rambam. The Ma'aser Bereishis Chochmas HaTeva. The Rambam speaks about in the beginning of Hilchos Yesod HaTorah. He talks about the difference between Ma'aser Bereishis and Ma'aser Merkava. So Ma'aser Bereishis is Chochmas HaTeva. Hainu Askola b'dvarim shekvan esava. Ma'aser Merkava Askola b'masha lifnei HaTeva. Ma'aser Merkava is things that are before, preceding the world, preceding nature, that are beyond this world. So we talk about angels, you talk about the Merkava, you talk about Atzilus for that matter. You're now dealing with ideas that are not tangible, the ideas that precede existence, and that are outside of the realm of what we would call tangible existence. Tangible meaning with the empirical world that we know, with empirical evidence, sensory tools, and so on.
Anything above Atzilus, so to speak.
No, I wouldn't say that. Anything above nature, Chachmas HaTeva, anything above understanding the nature of existence. Anything above science, basically. Metaphysics.
So they're on a sliding scale, or two Chachmas. The mice and that of the scientific.
Scientific is like Tzemeach Shebeseichel. That's what he's saying.
In other words, but it has no, we said that in Domim Sameach it was similar. In Nefesh the members, there was just a Milo in the Sameach that has more chayus, and so it grows. It's essentially the same classification. We're making the same statement here.
And the Chachma nature being that it's things that are already created, that's the Tzemeach Shebeseichel. For example, like astronomy, it gives astronomy as one example. The size of the sun, the way the celestial bodies move, this is a science. It's a brilliant science. No one's dismissing the seichel in it. However, it's a seichel around the tangible. It's an intelligence around the tangible reality. All this is a tzemech shebeseichel. This is all tzemech shebeseichel.
It has no soul.
Even the highest
I don't know about
physics, you call it still that.
He doesn't say, there are, I'm sure, areas of science that begin to touch the next level. Let's see the next level. We'll see if it fits in. This is not, again, I tell you, this is not dismissing or diminishing the power of the intelligence in science. Not at all. He's just talking about the ethereal nature of the mind at work. When you're dealing with something that's more tangible, you by definition, your mind has something to ground itself in. When you're dealing with abstractions like Atzilus or Tzimtzum and so on, you're dealing with the realities that are not tangible. So that's where the mind needs to use its, let's call it, its most abstract tools. Because you need to learn how to imagine, you have to learn how to, negate, Yediyas Ashlila. I would say quantum mechanics has definitely elements of that, because there are parts of it that have nothing to do with anything physical. It's the realization of a reality that no one's observed. But you're seeing it from its impact. It sounds to me almost like physics, that the quantum mechanics physics would probably be between Sameach and Chai. But let's see what Chai is, and then we can quantify it more. Yeah. L'maylam is at third level now. Hu haskola shebedibur. Higher than this is the seichel that's in dibur, in speech. Hu haseichel shebekotten, and this is intelligence even in a child. L'tzaref u'lechaber esis u'ledaber, to combine and join letters and to speak. So now it's a new level here now. V'agam shelichei hari haskola v'agam shelichei zeu haskola pchusa legab haskola sanal. So this intelligence, the fact that we right now, look at us right here, we can use our mouths. It's quite a feat. You take letters that are their own just separate letters, and you're able to combine them into words that have meaning. There's a wisdom in that. Says this is right now we're talking about the Chai Shebe Seichel. So he says, but Hagam, that L'cher is seemingly this Askala, this intelligence to combine words, to create words from letters, is Pchusa. It's lower than and inferior Pchusa. Lower than the Askala Sanal, let's say like science. How could you compare the intelligence to combine letters into words to the scholars, let's say, of scientific knowledge of astronomy or science and so on? Omnom, and here's the key again, he's not talking about level of intelligence here. We're talking about the nature of his intelligence as being ethereal or not. So omnom ba'amilas from madregas haseichel zelamayla maskolos now. It's not necessarily a higher intelligence. Doesn't mean you need to be far more brilliant to come up with astronomical equations than a child who's 3 years old is able to speak. No one's going to compare a 3-year-old to a 40-year-old, a 30, 20-year-old scientist in pure brain power. But in the element of the nature of seichel is, in other words, seichel's refined and ethereal state, intangible state. In that, has a l'mayla maskolos now. So again, we're not talking here brain power. We're not talking about the depth or the innovation. We're talking about here the nature, how tangible is the seichel. V'hu b'chinas chai shebeseichel. This is not chai. So we dealt with daim shebeseichel, sameach shebeseichel, chai shebeseichel. Let's read it further, and we'll see how we explain this. Let me just qualify this so you understand, so make it even clearer. No one suggests, for example, that when God created a stone, there's less intelligence in it than when He created a brain. Since when is a stone not a miracle? It's the same. But you could suggest is that in a stone, you don't see any revealed life force. That doesn't mean a stone isn't a complex entity. Stone is a very complex entity. As a matter of fact, in some ways you could say to create a stone requires, for an intelligent creature, intelligence to create stone requires a deeper wisdom than to create a intelligence.
More yesh may ayin.
It's a more, right, because it's, yeah. And no one's suggesting that. When I say stone, I don't just mean up rock. Rocks, minerals, these are complex entities. Today, with science actually, using science, you can open up a stone and stones have all kinds of stuff in it. It's not just an inanimate thing. Not even getting into the subatomic particles and all the dynamics within it. But a stone, but if you talk about pure in the terms of tangible versus ethereal, let's call it subtle versus crass, a stone is crass. Whereas a plant would be more subtle, and an animal more, and a human more, the seichel more. So if you talk about seichel as purely as an energy form, the energy of seichel is far more subtle than the energy of stone. Even though stone can have, as I said, it can have a whole intelligence in it. So that's really the key that he's addressing here. He's not addressing the pure brain power, as I said. You can have a scientist in the world of tzemeach shebeseichel. It's far deeper than what he's describing dibur. But in the ethereal nature of seichel, the idea of combining letters and turning them to words, as he's going to explain, has in it is the next higher level. Okay. So here it says, because now it says in Eitz Chaim, the reason why a child, even after 1 year, even though he understands everything, nevertheless he cannot speak. What's the reason? So he says in Eitz Chaim, because this child was not yet completed, finished, the development of what we call Meichin Diyanika. I've discussed this. Meichin Diyanika actually is very similar to what we talked about before, Yaakov. Yisrael? Yeah, Yaakov. Yeah. Yaakov is like Meichin Diyanika. What's Meichin Diyanika? There's an expression Meichin Diibur, Meichin Diyanika, and Meichin the godless. Yanika literally means nurse, to be nursed. So, as we see a human being develop, there's three stages: Ibur, Yanika, Meichin. Ibur means a state of pregnancy. So it's not just the fetus in the mother's womb. Also, the early stages in life are like pregnancy, because the child is still not an independent entity. Meichin Diyanika, the first few years of a child's development, which is why also halachically, when you start teaching a child Torah Tziva and Torah and so on, and knowledge. So the Meichin Diyanika begin to develop as soon as the child is born, or even earlier, but definitely when the child is born, and then it develops. So year 1, it's still middle of development. So the child can understand, but since that intelligence has not yet developed into full maturity, Meichin Diyanika, it still cannot speak. Then there'll be another stage when the child learns to speak, and it's lacking Ibur Yanika, it's lacking Meichin the godless. Bar mitzvah is when the Meichin the godless begins to enter. And by 20 is usually when Meichin the godless concludes. Sometimes it says later than that also. So that's the way, the human development of the mind. Meichin the godless is the ability ready to go to a Meichin that is beyond emotions. Within before that was like Yisrael Zuta. But so that's what he's talking about. So that's why intelligence he has. But since he doesn't have Nishlam B'Yadayim, he doesn't yet have the ability to speak. In other words, what do we prove from this? What does Eitz Chaim tell us? That speaking requires an intelligence. And a developed intelligence, not just basic intelligence. Which actually you can say right away. For example, a child at 1 can grab something, can want something, and make it very clear it wants it. Or even after 1, even more than that. The child, let's say, wants a bottle. It won't say it, but it'll look for it. And it really indicates it wants it. So you see there's a seichel of tzemeach there. Because there's a seichel of wanting this thing. It understands and wants it. And knows where to turn for something. But then there's a deeper seichel, there's a higher level of seichel that is necessary to speak. So there's the seichel of Maisa that he spoke about before. Even the intelligence, you see children have an intelligence about things they want. They'll cry for it, or they'll make sounds that direct you there. I see this. You see this every time, but they still can't speak. So there's a stage where you see the seichel of demon, you see seichel of tzemeach, but you don't see seichel of chayet. The seichel of dibur is seichel of chay. That's what he's proving here. Okay, here we go. Shariatinuk yeshle kol. Shariatinuk, we see a child has a voice. V'yeshle gankein hamitzoyis. Doesn't just have a voice; it also has the 5 gutturals. What do we call them there? We have the lips, the tongue, the palate, the throat, and the teeth. So it even has everything it needs to express words. Shem kelim le'esis. These gutturals, these 5 gutturals are the kelim, the containers for expressing words, right? So it's not like the teeth, the mouth hasn't yet developed. It's all there. And it also has a voice. So what's missing? And we see bechush, and we actually see shatinu cotton, meitzim epiv esis miyuchadis, that a young child utters certain letters. So not only that, he has a voice. We see he cries. He has the mitzoyis, he has the mouth, and the mouth is developed. Okay, teeth maybe not completely, but the rest of the mouth is developed, and some teeth too. Sometimes, when do teeth come in? Before you speak, right? The first year, yeah.
Even some kids are born with a couple of teeth.
And he even has esis michodas. You see, children will say something. Today there's this woman that is showing that you could see from children's sounds the different expressions, even youngest age, different things they want. So you can see a child will say certain letters too. So there's even letters. Nevertheless, he cannot express with his mouth even something he understands well. Why can't he just say, "Give me milk"? He understands it. His voice is there. His mouth is there. There's even letters, and still doesn't know how to say those words. They gave meat and fish to children. Okay. Like meat and fish and similar. Even though the child can distinguish that this is meat and this is fish, nevertheless he can't express it from his mouth. So this is a question. So the Eitz Chaim answers, this all proves that in order to express it from his mouth, you need a wisdom here. That's to join, to connect and to join letters. Joining letters, that is magbil. That's confined, and describes. That's a particular skill, a particular wisdom. But you'll feel better, but it's negative. And this child, as long as the actual thing is not really a siyashrus b'sichle, he knows it, but it's not really internalized. He's unable to really define it, is what I would say. Define. Because this knowledge that he knows that this is meat has etzerak b'chinas makif. It's only in a form of makif, which means it hovers. It's not internalized. Lo b'yashrus mamish. It doesn't really completely relate to it. He just has a connection. He understands it, but it's not really. Doesn't own it yet. In his seichel, and therefore he can't express it. That's why he can't state it. Doesn't express. And this is all because the moichin the katnus is not yet developed. Moichin diyanika rather. The moichin diyanika not fully developed. So mainly doesn't have that isyashvus yet. It's almost, I would say it's almost symbolic. When he sees meat, he identifies this is meat, this is because he's eaten it a few times. But you cannot say that he understands that this is meat and fish yet. They have a term for this in the child development, where children understand things more reflexively. Like if you give a child milk enough times, it suddenly realizes this is what it wants. He shows you a bottle, like your children right away, even without them taking the bottle, they see the bottle, they right away get calmer. So they understand it because they've already associated. It's understanding by association, not an understanding by comprehension. That's what I would call it. No. That's an expression used by animals.
Only by animals.
It's the only place I've ever seen it. So, I would say it's more of an intelligence by association than intelligence by comprehension, which would mean hisyashvus. That's the way I would explain it.
Element of self-awareness to it.
Now goes another thing. That's why we see there's a difference between two types of children. Tinuk HaMiyushav. So Tinuk HaMiyushav, how would you translate that? It's a calmer child, maybe. A more internalized. How would you try Tinuk HaMiyushav? It's a Biltim Yushav. It's one that's not so more restless, maybe. Let's see if that fits. The Tinuk Shehu Miyushav.
Developed child.
I don't know if that's the word. The Tinuk, a child that's more Miyushav, that's a Miyushav. That's, I would say, more settled. Mimaskil Kedim Ledaber. He begins to speak earlier. Va'biltim Miyushav, and the child that is less calm or less settled, it's possible, Shagam B'meshach Shanim, it's possible that even in a matter of years, over a span of years, that when he has to express himself, say something, it takes time. It doesn't say it so easily. Even though he knows what he wants, yeah, he knows the thing that he wants to say, and he thinks about it. Clearly his mind is working. Nevertheless, he doesn't immediately express, doesn't immediately state it. What he's thinking, only with an interval of time. Why is that? Because he's not a tinnik miyushav. The thing is not yet, the idea, the object is not yet internalized completely, settled inside of him. That's why he needs an interval of time until it should become internalized inside him. Ayin, this thing, and then he can speak about it.
Quality of being a stutterer, do you think has to do with that?
Maybe.
What did you say?
A stutterer. It doesn't say it specifically. I don't think Biltim Yushav is a stutterer.
It's not.
But it could be connected to it.
Like some kind of a slow development.
But stuttering, usually they say it's connected to, stuttering can be connected very much to, it's emotional, like fear. So I don't know if I would associate that with fear, because that's an additional element here. The Tinuk Miyushav, Biltim Miyushav, I'd have to look up if that expression is used anywhere to really know what he means by that. I mean, the technical definition is a restless and a calmer child. That's in Hebrew.
Yeah, but he talks about the seichel of this.
Yeah. But restless could be a child who's still not as developed as you said, or not as mature. I'm not sure.
In this context,
because he isn't just saying, he's saying clearly that it takes him more time to learn to speak. Or more importantly, not just takes him time to learn to speak, he says in first it takes longer to learn to speak, and then it takes longer to express himself when he wants to say something. I've not seen so. What happens is, this child will say right away what I want, and this one will take a little longer to say something.
So how is it connected to the idea of chayshe b'seichel? It means that chayshe b'seichel is much deeper than tzemeach b'seichel. That means being b'syash is going deeper into this.
Yeah. In other words, the expression in dibur requires a deeper dimension of a certain seichel. Like I said, a child can grab his bottle, can even be aware, can smile. The mice is there, the daimim shebeseichel is even the The child could even be innovative. He could even be innovative, even manipulative, saying how he wants something without, and still doesn't have the ability to express it in words.
He did not reveal the Chai Shebeseichel.
That's what he's saying. Yeah. That there's a dimension of seichel, what he calls moichen diyanika, that is not yet developed.
Putting all the time with his yashmus, with his.
Yeah, clearly. Look, this is still by a child. I'm sure this is going to be an example for this for an adult, where we'll probably understand it better. So I wouldn't jump yet. Let's see where he finishes with this. Here's another example, like a Talmud Hashemeh Dover Mirabe. Another, similarly, a student that hears something from his teacher. And he understands the idea. Nevertheless, he cannot repeat it, say it immediately, until he thinks about it on his own. Why is that? Because in the beginning, even though he knows it, he heard it, it's still hovering, it's still not internalized. And the student, when he thinks about it, on his own, not when he's in the presence of the teacher, it settles in and internalized inside, integrated. And then he can explain it. Okay, this adds. So in other words, speaking is not just a technical thing, basically. It's a sign. If you can share it with someone, it's a sign that you've internalized it more. It's a higher level of meichen. That's why he didn't. That's why in seichel itself, the science may be a greater seichel, but science is still a seichel around nature, around existence. And this is a seichel that requires a deeper dimension. That's what he's saying now. Yeah.
So, how would you explain it?
So, in a child,
scientist, that he can explain his theories to other people.
That's also.
He understands cooking. He can explain it to other people.
Well, as soon as you can explain it, it's definitely a deeper level of intelligence.
I mean, it can be a very tall tree, a very beautiful tree, but you don't have the cat in you, the animal. You didn't reach the disease.
Let's say I don't want to jump it. He's going to finish the Inyan, then we can start comparing it to the previous level. Okay, so now he's adding some more details that help understand this. He says, so we see a student, he hears it, he gets it, but he can't express it yet until he thinks about it and internalizes it. And then he's able to express it, and specifically, we can actually express it in different words than what he heard, which shows even more. That means he's really internalized it, so he's able to use his own words. He's basically digested it, and he's now presenting it in different words. And also, and also that another should understand it from him. So two things are happening here. Three things are actually happening. One, he wasn't able to express it because it wasn't misyashiv, it wasn't internalized. Now he's able to now it's internalized, so he can express it. He can, even furthermore, he can express it in other words, and he can express it in a way that another person will understand it from him and not from his teacher. So all this shows that some type of higher intelligence is at work that is allowing all this to happen.
You're a good teacher, you're a good chaya. How do you translate Zulus in English?
Another, and the other.
And the other?
Zulus is other, the other. Zulus.
In English, is there a word like...
the other.
Like I don't find even in Russian, like I'm thinking, there's no real... Like you say, Zulosi, not me.
Maybe because in Russian everything is me.
No, but also in English, yeah, that's right. No, but in English also, how do you say Zulosi? How would you say Zulosi?
The other, another.
I'm saying
in English, it's not one word.
No, but in English you say another, the other. There's words for it. There is.
Others.
That's the plural, but the other.
Zulosi.
Let's start. I understand it myself, and I can explain it to another. That would be the way.
Okay.
That means Zula.
How do you say Zulosi in English? One word?
Well, someone other than me.
Other than me.
Yeah.
You have like the whole sentence.
Okay, fine, but they're saying Zulasi.
No, I just wondered. English is there a word.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as a word for that.
No, but you have sometimes. For example, I was once at a Shabbos.
They have a word like that. I could not. They don't have it in English. You don't say. How do you say is Zulosi?
I told you, other than me.
It's a sentence. It's not a word.
But in Hebrew, a lot of things are like that. One letter in Hebrew.
It's two words. Zulas and Zulosi.
No. It's one word.
It's one word, but in Hebrew they're able to. A yud makes it.
In Hebrew, it's one word. I was trying to explain to my son, and I couldn't explain it. That's why I wondered. I just saw this word.
I hear.
Exactly. What is Zulosi? Like, okay, I explained to you in the sentence, but one word. How could it be one word?
But the translation, but that's a rule. The rule is a sentence in Hebrew can take 2 lines in English and a paragraph in French.
Right. Sometimes it's the opposite.
I don't know Russian.
Russian is
shorter than English, but not short as Hebrew.
No,
nothing is as short as Hebrew. The most concise, the Esem, because it's metaphorical also.
Yeah.
It's a house of congregation. Yeah, but it's longer in Hebrew actually. Beis Knesset is a shul, a synagogue.
Okay, here we go. Kol zeh, so all this, tzorich shi'ezman, requires time, passing of time, v'tfisa, and grasping, v'yashrus yeser, and more internalization. So he says 3 things: time, tfisa to grasp, and more internalizing. So what we see from this is, from the Eitz Chaim, starting from the Eitz Chaim, that there's a level of intelligence that we're now introducing that is expressed in expression, in the ability to combine letters into words, and to convey an idea to others in your own words or after you've heard it. So now he's going, V'cheinu begadol, the same thing, just like we just spoke about a child. This level of chai is also in a gadol, also in an adult. You see an adult that is unable to reveal ideas and to explain them to another, is because he himself does not really have grasped it. He's not really owned it. He's heard it, but it's like passed through him. It's not his yet. Parentheses, like it's known, the letters come from the nefesh. Letters don't come from your mouth; they come from the nefesh. There's letters in the soul. The mouth reveals them, expresses them. They're the instrument, just like music, song. Song doesn't come out. Someone say, "Where's song originate from? From your mouth?" No. Song is you have song inside of you. Your mouth is the mouthpiece, the instrument that plays, that allows the song to come through you. Like the song come from a violin. The violin is an instrument that the person who's playing the song can play music. So the violin is the tools, the instrument. And these letters, nimshachim, are transmitted through the giluyim from the nefesh, from revelations from the soul. When these giluyim, in other words, he's now explaining why who says, why can't you just say that a child or an adult who can't express it yet, because they haven't found the words yet. It's like you have to find them. Just like I can't give you water unless I find cups. Now I pour you water. Who says, why do you have to go and say it's a deeper intelligence?
To connect between the oasis and the...
Right, and expressing it. Why? You could say the fact that you can't express it to someone, because you haven't yet, you need to look a little more for tools to express it. Who says you need more intelligence? That's why he's saying no. It doesn't work that way. Oases don't come from cups. The oases come, no, just like someone says I can't yet sing, it means not because you don't have the tool yet, it's because you have not yet developed it internally. The oases come from the nefesh. And to reveal them, the idea has to first go into your containers, you have to absorb it. That's when they reveal them. It's start from oases and the letters get combined. Shehena kelim el gili, because they are the containers of the gili. In other words, it's the other way around. It's not first you find letters and then you express. First you find the deeper intelligence, and that turns it into letters that become kelim. It's a critical parenthesis, because you could argue the other way around. You could say it's nothing to do with letters. It's to simply do with you got it, and now you're looking for a way to express it. It's not correct. Letters are outgrowth, are a birth. They're birthed from deeper intelligence. That's what he's saying here. And when you have that intelligence, you're able to access those letters And the containers they draw out the wisdom from the Giluyim, from the Nefesh.
And how could you connect it to this? Somebody can sing inside and he cannot sing it. It doesn't have the ear.
No, because there you could say
It doesn't have the ear.
there he doesn't have the. No, because listen, there's another thing. That you could have, let's say, a stutterer, as you said, or a mute person. He could have absorbed the idea, but his instrument has been, God forbid, has been damaged. Yeah, but that doesn't mean he doesn't have. That means it simply can't. It's like someone holds your mouth closed. That doesn't mean you can't say it. It's just your mouth is not letting you. Your mouth is sealed. That's a different story. The other way is the other way around. If you have a great mouthpiece, look, there are people who have the gift of gab. They can talk and talk and talk and say nothing. Why? Because they don't have it inside of them. They talk. They talk and talk, and you start challenging them. You see, they don't know what they're talking about.
Like a parrot.
Yeah. So you can have the opposite. The tools are there, but there's no seichel involved. In other words, expression is not a technicality. Expression is a deeper level of intelligence. That's what he's saying here. And that in turn creates the containers and the letters, in other words, to express. It's interesting. I speak now as a speaker and a writer. I could tell you, obviously when I read and you develop a vocabulary. The vocabulary doesn't come from your soul. You pick it up by reading.
Zirufim.
Right. So words, to find the right words, for example, are not a soul thing. But let me put it this way. If you don't have a deeper intelligence, you're not going to find right words. It's not just being a wordsmith, in other words. It's not just someone who's going to read millions of articles, they know every letter in the dictionary, and they're suddenly expressed. That's not going to work. If you have a feeling for it, then you come, and you also have read, you'll have words. So you could have somebody who has real feeling, but they just didn't learn language. So they may not have they may not have a repertoire to express themselves. So I don't think he's not suggesting that actually learning vocabulary comes from the deeper understanding. Vocabulary comes from simple fact. You got to know the words. Like how do you express a certain word? But there's no question. The real expression comes, you really feel it, and then you find the right word that fits your feeling. It fits the spirit of it. That's why we sit here sometimes looking for a word. You're not just looking for a translation. You need a word that captures the spirit of the word, not just translation. Mamala kalaman isn't just filling the world. What does that mean? When you say imminent energy, you say hisyashrus means, you could say hisyashrus means settled, but hisyashrus means more, it's internalized, it's integrated. These are words that capture the spirit of it. So
the same idea as Bosser V'Dogen by the Tinek, that he sees the object.
It's more association, yeah, he sees it, but he doesn't yet internalize it.
I feel something, but I...
Yeah, al derech zeh, yeah. So then a new level of meichen enters, and he begins to say, this is really a fish. Dogim, this is dogim. He understands dogim.
Or by godly.
But remember, the key thing is, the word fish means nothing. You could say fish, if we all decided that fish is cheese, then cheese would be called fish, and fish would be called cheese.
Right.
So we're not talking about the symbolism of letters. We're talking about the understanding of what you're talking about here. Right. Not obviously, if another word is used, you use a different word.
Yeah,
Did you say before that Chayu is Yisrael Zushta? Or would it apply to...
I said Meichen Diyanika is like Yaakov.
So what is the child missing?
The Meichen Diyanika, the intelligence to do this. Doesn't yet have the ability to internalize it that way.
Yeah, but you're saying if it's not the words itself.
The intelligence to internalize the idea, so to be able to find those words. A child needs two things. It needs obviously the vocabulary, because that's what it hears. Like if it sees a mother say all the time, milk, 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 milk. This is milk. That you can memorize. But then for a child to actually say the word milk, I want milk, requires an intelligence, it's not just a parrot learning to parrot, because then it could come right away. Why wouldn't it come right away? It clearly means that the child is going through a development stage. Until a point, look, when the child grows an adult, clearly we say things that are not just mechanical. You're expressing an idea, it means you're able to comprehend an idea. So on the lower levels, the child begins to develop ability to comprehend ideas at a young age, except then it's still a child. We're still Meichen Diyanika. We're not talking here abstract knowledge.
So basically we're explaining that this level of Meichen is being able to express something into words.
Yeah. So he says, Rak shebe tinuk nikra davar yeser. Only thing is, in a child, it's more obvious. The kaid mishnasa beishlemus hazeis lies b'chinas yashus eni yachal adaber. that before he develops, before he has this shleimus, this completion, this level of development, that it should be internalized, he literally can't speak. So an adult, you're not going to really see it quite that obvious, because an adult, he still can speak. He just can't understand this subject he hasn't yet been able to express. But he's able to express it maybe superficially, or express other ideas. In a child, it's very obvious, because till the point of some level of development, there's no speech at all. The Isa Beis Chaim, and Eitz Chaim, it says, Shezeh b'chinas Elikim de Katnus. This is called, the name of Elikim, Katnus. There's always, in Kabbalah, there's Katnus and Gadlus. Katnus literally means immature, and Gadlus means mature. So Katnus means early stage of development, actually, and Gadlus is later, mature stage of development. So whenever you say Moichen de Katnus, like Pesach, you say Matzah is Moichen de Katnus. It's the early stages of intellectual development. So he says, Elikim, this is the level of Elikim de Katnus. Why? So Elikim, we know, is made up of Aleph, Lamed, Hey, Yud, Mem. Right? Yud K is in there. Hey and Yud. So he's saying, when Elikim is still in a state of early stage of development, there's no Yud K, so what do you have left? No? Chosel, Esis Yud K, the Elikim, Nishat Siruf, Ilam, which is mute. Silence. So when a person, so Elikim, take away the Hey Yud, Aleph, Lamed, Mem, that's Ilam, that's a mute. V'zeh Ayin Shleimus Meichem Diyanika. That's why he's unable to speak. But then there's this. Then this is the shleimus meich. This is the completion of the stage of development called moichen diyanika, that it developed the inyan, the inyanehu, the mashiyadeu masik yizeh b'chinas hasoga gemura. The inyan of this is that what he knows and understands should be complete comprehension, b'chinas yashfus, internalized, integrated, v'tfisa, and graspable. And through that, in him is developed this perfection, this completion, that he's able to combine and join to express the energy, the light, the force of the intelligence. As long as he's still nursing, he doesn't yet have this perfection, this completion. Only when the days of Yanika end, when the nursing ends. That's when he gets complete with this. That his seichel should then become internalized for child level. And through that he can combine and join letters. So that's the stage of Meichen Diyanika. We still didn't finish the subject. Yeah, another chapter. Kitzur. Let's do the Kitzur. Hamedaber kol midat cham. The medaber, which is the human being that speaks, itself encompasses dem tzameach chai medaber. Kol midat cham is comprised of these four dimensions. Seichel shebeumnas ubchinas dem. The intelligence in an actual craft, or the action of the craft, crafting something, that's daimim. Shemalubish bedover chumri, that manifests, that enclosed in a coarse, in a tangible item, ve'ein boi ruchnis ha-seichel, and does not have the etherealness, the subtlety of the seichel, of intelligence, because according to the thing, a malbish, that encloses it, Kainhu, that's the way the Eira Seichel. It's like when you dress in a certain garment, that garment is now defines and filters the Seichel this way. That's level one. And the innovation, the invention of the thing itself, that's already Sameach Seichel. Something that's growing. It comes from a growth place. The same is true with the wisdom of nature science. V'seichel shebedibur. Now comes level 3. The intelligence in speech, letzaref esis, to combine letters. Shezet toli b'syashvus ha'inyan. That's dependent already in the integration, internalization of the subject. Something that is still in a state of makif, that hovers, does not express itself in speech. Yeah, right. Just like a person who hears an intelligent idea, specifically only after he thinks about it, and it settles in him, internalized, then he can speak about it, and also to change the letters and express them in different letters. In a child we see it very obviously, because a child before can't speak and now could speak. So now that we learn from the Gadol, the mere fact that we learn that an adult who hears something can't express it, so we know from that when a child can't express it is because he's not yet internalized. And this is achieved when he comes to this stage of development where he's able to express. This is nishlam, this is completed b'meichen diyanika, an intelligence of what we call intelligence of the nursing stage, the complete stage where he's able to express himself this way. Okay, we'll stop here. So we did the end of chapter 146, page 283 and 284.